I was the Chancellor's most cherished legitimate daughter. In my past life, the imperial sage foretold a calamity in my destiny, declaring I must marry Xiao Jin, the city gate guard, to borrow his fortune and turn peril into safety. I believed that after marrying him, we would live a harmonious life together. Little did I know. Barely 3 years into our marriage, my father was branded a traitor, his family executed and his estate confiscated. Xiao Jin, however, rose to power, stepping over my father's bones to ascend to the position of chancellor. Only on my deathbed did I learn the truth. Because my destiny was unique, capable of sustaining my husband's family with my own fortune, Xiao Jin, using his claim of saving my life, had the Grand Preceptor fabricate this lie for him. Reborn. I returned to the day the Imperial Preceptor again demanded I marry Xiao Jin. I raised my hand and slapped him across the face, in the dead of night. When dreams return, did your conscience ever stir? Even for a moment? When the imperial edict sentencing my father's family to confiscation and extermination arrived, Xiao Jin was embracing his 2 newly acquired concubines, staging a live erotic spectacle before my eyes. Instead, he ordered men to bind my limbs, forcing me to kneel on the ground. He pressed my head down, compelling me to watch him and his concubines in their carnal embrace. Zhou Ruoku, if not for your destiny-bound fate, do you truly believe I'd willingly endure your haughty demeanor day after day? He sneered coldly, then turned to kiss one concubine on the cheek. The concubine flushed with coyness, fluttering her eyelashes at him before melting into his embrace. Xiao Jin wore an expression of pure indulgence. Look at that, now that's a real woman. In the past, he'd always complained I wasn't delicate enough, that I carried myself with the haughtiness of a noble lady and couldn't master the alluring docility of common women. But back then, it was merely occasional grumbling. Now that my Zhou family has fallen, he's unleashed every grievance he ever held against me. I said nothing, only stared at him fixedly, my eyes burning with hatred. Look at this, the husband I chose for myself. Xiao Jin looked down at me from above. Suddenly, his gaze shifted. He pressed his foot down on my head and pointed at the imperial edict that had just been delivered. By now, your arrogant father's head should have been severed. Shouldn't it? Xiao Jin, our Zhou family treated you well. I glared at him fiercely, the hatred in my heart threatening to consume me entirely. This husband of mine, married to me for 3 years, wore a gentle facade in public, feigning marital harmony. Yet behind closed doors, he colluded with my father's sworn enemy, falsely accusing him of rebellion, ultimately sending my father to the executioner's block. My entire Zhou family, 132 souls, the pride of our lineage, were all wiped out. And he climbed over my father's bones, rising from a lowly imperial gate guard to become the most powerful man in the court. Zhou Ruoku, I loathe your self-righteous airs most of all. Don't think being the chancellor's daughter makes you inherently superior. Now you're nothing but dirt beneath my feet. Xiao Jin ground his foot relentlessly against my skull, his eyes brimming with triumph. Then he slowly crouched down, yanked my jaw open, and forced the cup of gut-piercing poison down my throat. But since we were once husband and wife, I'll send you to reunite with your father in the underworld. He laughed wildly, while I had no strength left. The poison took effect, and I felt every organ in my body ache. The child still unborn inside me was likely lost. As consciousness faded, I glimpsed a figure, a white-robed figure, with the bearing of an immortal. It was him, the imperial sage who could commune with spirits and gods. Bai Rongqing. He rushed to my side, seemingly to save me. You once saved my life, demanding I cover for you with this lie. I thought you merely sought to seize the Zhou family's fortune, sparing their lives at least. But I never imagined. The rest of his words faded into indistinctness. So this was the whole truth. I had believed it was all Xiao Jin's scheme, that he'd used methods unknown to me to alter my destiny, causing even the court's grand sage to miscalculate. I never imagined this was the scheme of both of them. The grace of the esteemed grand sage, how supremely glorious it should have been, yet it was stained with the blood of over 100 members of my Zhou family. I strained every muscle to grab Bai Rongqing's robe as he stood before me. But my hands only touched the jade pendant hanging at his waist, the one he never parted with. I clutched the pendant fiercely, letting my blood soak it red. Xiao Jin. Bai Rongqing, I will never let you off the hook. With my dying breath, I screamed these words with every ounce of strength left in me. If there is a next life, I absolutely will, grind their bones to dust. If the Chancellor wishes to ensure Miss Zhou San lives without harm, then he must marry her to Xiao Jin, the Imperial City Guard. Xiao Jin possesses a unique destiny, he is the only one who can break this curse. When I heard those words again, my mind was still hazy. Blinking dazedly, I found myself cradled in the arms of my personal maid, Ming Zhu, soaked through as if I'd just fallen into water, drowning, breaking the curse. And Bai Rongqing. Suddenly, I realized this was the day of the spring banquet, personally arranged by Grand Princess Saren 3 years ago. I had fainted and fallen into the pond. When I was pulled out, I was barely clinging to life. Just then, the Imperial Preceptor, Bai Rongqing, appeared. He placed a pill in my mouth, and I miraculously revived. While my consciousness was still hazy, he publicly performed a divination for me. And thus, that absurd divine decree was foretold. Everything unfolded so naturally. Imperial Guard Xiao Jin happened to be on leave that day, delivering wine with his family when he witnessed my fall and rescued me. Already indebted to him for saving my life, and influenced by the Grand Sage's words, Father had always cherished me deeply, never once considering using me as a pawn in his quest for fame and fortune. He only wished that after my coming-of-age ceremony, I would find a suitable husband and live a life of peace and contentment. That was why he gritted his teeth and arranged my marriage to Xiao Jin. I forced my eyes open, gazing at Xiao Jin standing by the door, equally drenched. His earnest gaze was fixed on me. Upon seeing I had awakened and was looking at him, he swiftly resumed his usual refined gentlemanly demeanor. He truly was a master of pretense, a debauched soul at heart. Yet he managed to maintain the appearance of a dignified gentleman. Had it not been for that, I would likely have chosen death over marrying him. My thoughts gradually returned. So, I truly had been reborn. Father listened to Bai Rongqing's words. His eyes filled with hesitation, as if seeking a solution that would satisfy both sides. Your Excellency the State Master, is there truly no other way? Father did not wish to marry me off lightly to a stranger I had never met. Even though he had recently saved my life, there were countless ways to repay a debt of gratitude. It did not necessarily have to be through marriage. Bai Rongqing shook his head. This is the only way to break the impasse. He spoke with absolute certainty. As the Grand Zhou State Master, he possessed the ability to commune with spirits and gods. So the heavenly mandate he divined never faltered. Therefore, if he said I could only marry Xiao Jin in this life, then I could only marry him. Otherwise, I would surely die. It was for this reason that my father agreed to give me in marriage. As my father remained silent, Xiao Jin could barely contain the excitement on his face. He was about to repeat the actions of my past life, kneeling first to declare his willingness to help me weather the tribulation, then vowing to marry only me in this lifetime. In short, he would shower me with pledges of devotion, his eyes and heart brimming with affection. Dressed with deliberate dignity and grace, he was almost acceptable, save for his humble origins. In my past life, though it was called a marriage of convenience, there were reasons behind it. So I always felt a sense of obligation toward him. After marrying him, I served my in-laws with filial piety, leaving them nothing to fault. within my means. I also had my father continually support his political career. He, too, respected me deeply. Though we shared no romantic affection, I always believed we could live out our days as respectful companions. Even as death approached, I learned I was carrying his child. Though premature, I genuinely rejoiced at the prospect of this new life and truly envisioned a future of cherishing grandchildren. Yet in the end, it was all a deception orchestrated by the two of them. My hand, hidden in my sleeve, clenched tightly. The overwhelming hatred threatened to spill over. So I swiftly raised my hand and slapped Byronching across the face. Revenge. I will take them down one by one. The slap echoed loudly. Everyone in the hall fell silent, staring at me wide-eyed, seemingly unable to believe what had just happened. Even Xiao Jin, who had been about to step through my door, halted abruptly. The esteemed imperial sage, a man revered by the emperor himself, who had displayed supernatural abilities before the entire court, a deity worshipped by all the people under heaven. Yet here he stood, slapped across the face by me in full view of everyone. My hand stung, but my heart felt exhilarated. Byronching stared at me, the red handprint still visible, his expression inscrutable. He seemed on the verge of fury. Yet he forced himself to hold it back. And rightly so. For his so-called kindness, he chose to sacrifice me. To sacrifice my entire Zhou family. A god naturally feels compassion for the world. Therefore, he himself knew he owed me. Owed my Zhou family. And this single slap, he had no choice but to endure it. I took several deep breaths before slowly calming my emotions. Though I desperately wanted to draw my sword and kill Xiao Jin and Byronching right then. Such an act would plunge my Zhou family into ruin. It didn't matter. I could take my time. Gritting my teeth, I dug the hand hidden in my sleeve deep into my thigh. Tears instantly spilled, streaking my face, a sight that would surely stir pity in anyone. Earlier, I glimpsed a vengeful spirit. It kept questioning His Excellency the State Master, causing my head to split with pain. That's why I struck you by accident. I was already weakened by my fall into the water. In my panic, even if I acted out of character, it could be said I had my reasons. As Byronching listened, his brow furrowed almost imperceptibly. As the man closest to divinity in Great Zhou, he always wore a white robe. His features truly bore the aura of an immortal. Yet his heart was utterly corrupt. May I ask, Miss Zhou-san, what exactly was that woman accusing you of? I had made it all up. But Byronching pressed on earnestly, and I answered with equal earnestness. The woman asked whether, in the dead of night, the Grand Preceptor ever felt his conscience prick him. Whether he had been haunted by the spirits of the wronged. Whether, having committed so many misdeeds, he still dared to stand upon the altar of divinity, feigning righteousness. I fired off 3 questions in rapid succession, my voice growing more impassioned with each one. Acqui, watch your words. Father hurriedly spoke up, shaking his head at me, urging me to say no more. After all, I was questioning the current Grand Preceptor, a figure even the Emperor must treat with reverence. But, so what? I lifted my head again, looking at Byronching before me. I wonder, Grand Preceptor, did you ever answer that vengeful spirit? He fell silent, his lips pressed tightly together, slow to speak. Even the assembled crowd couldn't help but murmur among themselves. The Grand Princess, seated regally at the head of the table, frowned and turned her gaze toward him. Today's events may hold other possibilities. Let me return and ponder further. Perhaps there exists another way to ensure Miss Zhou-san's life proceeds smoothly. As Byronching spoke these words, his peripheral vision couldn't help but glance at Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin's eyes widened in shock, seemingly unprepared for Byronching's sudden reversal. Yet he was now merely a lowly gatekeeper soldier. Without the state master's endorsement, he was nothing. His fists clenched, eyes lowered. His expression radiated utter resentment. I sneered coldly, "Then may I ask, Your Excellency the Grand Preceptor, how do you think I should repay this young master who saved my life?" Before I could finish, Xiao Jin stepped forward. Kneeling before my father with hands clasped in a bow, "I was merely passing by. And saving you was simply an act of kindness. No repayment is necessary. The Chancellor and Miss Zhou San need not trouble themselves over this." Had father offered a reward first, this debt of life would have been settled. But Xiao Jin spoke first, appearing utterly unselfish. This effortlessly won the goodwill of everyone present. Moreover, father couldn't freely bestow rewards now. Doing so would show disrespect to my savior and disregard for his daughter. Under the watchful eyes of all, father must now carefully consider how to repay Xiao Jin. I sneered inwardly. Xiao Jin remained as shrewd and calculating as ever. Before achieving his goal, he could endure all, presenting himself as a proper, refined young gentleman. Since that was the case, I naturally had to accommodate his elaborate scheming. "You saved my life, no need to belittle yourself. Why not come to the Zhou residence and serve as my personal bodyguard? What do you say?" At first glance, it seemed hardly a grand reward. But as a lowly guard at the imperial city gates, Xiao Jin, without connections, might spend his entire life in that position if fortune smiled upon him. Yet if he could join the Chancellor's household as my personal guard, with that life-saving debt before him, and my father observing him daily, he would constantly be reminded of that favor. This would inevitably grant him a chance for meteoric advancement. Not to mention, Xiao Jin was already bending over backwards, seeking every possible way to get close to me. Thus, no one would refuse my proposal. Bai Rongqing, who knew all the details, naturally understood that my proposal benefited everyone and offered no objections. Meeting my gaze, he gave a slight nod. If even the court's Grand Master deemed this plan acceptable, then the matter was settled. Xiao Jin clasped his hands before me, then knelt and kowtowed 3 times with a thud. As pliant as ever, his voice rang out, unwaveringly firm, "Thank you for your favor." "Third Miss Zhou." Favor? I merely wished to keep him close. Once inside the Chancellor's residence, he would be entirely at my mercy. Should I desire his death today, he wouldn't live to see tomorrow. "Xiao Jin, your retribution has come." I brought him back to the Chancellor's residence. Though publicly, I had promised to make him my personal guard. But I remained an unmarried maiden. Propriety demanded it. Without special instruction, he could only guard the entrance to my courtyard. When he first arrived, Xiao Jin's eyes burned with certainty. He believed that sharing the same roof would grant him an advantage, allowing him to use the tactics from my past life to persuade me to marry him. Alas! Under my deliberate instructions, for nearly half a month, he barely saw my face twice, let alone employ those tactics. "Miss, Xiao Jin requested half a day off today, claiming urgent family matters requiring his immediate return." The maid Mingzhu had been keeping a close watch on Xiao Jin for me, so news of his departure reached my ears promptly. "Did you send someone to follow him?" Mingzhu nodded, "Following your previous instructions. I selected the finest shadow guards from the estate. They're keeping a distant watch, not necessarily to eavesdrop on useful information, but to observe whether he meets with anyone. Though Xiao Jin's mother also resides in the capital, her dwelling is remote. He might not visit her for 10 days or even half a month. So 9 times out of 10, he was meeting Bai Rongqing. As the esteemed imperial preceptor, Bai Rongqing possessed innate abilities to communicate with spirits and deities. If the shadow guards followed too closely, they would inevitably be detected. Sure enough, Shadow Guard 11 returned and confirmed Xiao Jin had met with Bai Rongqing. Why would the imperial preceptor care so much about a mere guard? Mingzhu had no memories of her past life. She didn't recall how Xiao Jin had forced himself upon her in her previous existence. How she'd bitten him in defiance after refusing to endure the humiliation, only to be casually handed over to the stable hand of the mansion, where she suffered brutal abuse until her death. This foolish girl now looked at me with nothing but confusion. I lowered my gaze to Mingzhu, who knelt before me, and gently stroked her head. You only need to remember this, neither of them are good people. When you see them, just keep your distance. Mingzhu nodded, her eyes brimming with trust in me. The next day, Bai Rongqing arrived at the estate. When the servant came to announce his arrival, Mingzhu's eyes widened, filled with admiration for me. She tiptoed closer and whispered in my ear, "Miss, how did you foresee this? It's as if you can predict the future. You said yesterday that the imperial preceptor would visit today. And he truly did. It was easy to guess. Bai Rongqing is now the only person Xiao Jin can rely on. Yesterday's meeting was almost certainly about pressuring him with the debt of saving his life. Today, coming to my residence to see my father, was simply to bring up the matter of my destiny again." I drew the handkerchief tucked at my waist, dusted with chili powder, and dabbed it lightly at my eye corners. Instantly, my eyes flushed crimson. The stage is set. Your young mistress should take the stage now. Mingzhu nodded with a smile. It's bound to be spectacular. The servants were dismissed. I swiftly exited the courtyard and intercepted Bai Rongqing before father's study. Father isn't at the residence today. Bai Rongqing seemed skeptical. Your servant said the chancellor was in his study. I shook my head. That's just the official story. With that, I pushed open the study door. The room was empty. Not a soul in sight. Where is the chancellor? Bai Rongqing followed me inside. Seeing the room truly empty, he looked puzzled. Today is the 7th day of the month. I closed the door behind me, under his slightly wary gaze, then walked to the bookshelf. With a slight turn of the white jade porcelain vase beside it, a secret passage appeared in the study. Father must have left the city through the secret passage. Dare you accompany me? Though Bai Rongqing couldn't quite fathom my actions. He was, after all, the esteemed imperial preceptor. Should anything happen within the chancellor's residence, my entire Zhou family, 9 generations, would be held accountable. Naturally, he wasn't afraid. Following the secret passage eastward, we exited directly through the city gate. After parting the grass and emerging from the passage, a small courtyard hidden in the outskirts came into view. This place was extremely secluded, easily missed by ordinary people. What is this place? Bai Rongqing stood beside me. Our elevated position afforded a clear view of the courtyard below. Inside, dozens of children ran about while elderly figures leaned on canes, all immersed in a scene of joyful harmony. The emperor's wrath had been thunderous. For the Prince of Li's attempted rebellion 3 years prior, he had decreed the punishment of dismemberment by 5 horses. His fiefdom had long harbored displaced people, and after the prince's death, a plague ravaged the lands, resulting in the deaths of most of the city's inhabitants. Those who survived fled northward, but His Majesty, still harboring resentment toward them for aiding the Prince of Li's rebellion, barred all these displaced people from entering the city. He even forbade court officials and their families from offering assistance. Yet the men and their families within the city who had actually participated in the rebellion had long since been executed. These widows, orphans, and infants, still in swaddling clothes, were victims of an undeserved calamity. Now barred from the city, they faced certain death. But father could not bear it. He secretly built a hidden passageway, smuggling provisions from the mansion. In this concealed place, he constructed a large courtyard to shelter these widows and orphans. And today, the 7th day of the month, was precisely the day father taught those poor children. After speaking, I dabbed beneath my eyes with a handkerchief. My eyes quickly reddened, filling with tears. After hearing my words, Bai Rongqing seemed lost in thought. He turned to look at me, his eyes filled with inquiry. Why did you tell me this? Instead of answering, I countered, does the Grand Preceptor believe my father has served the people of this realm faithfully? He nodded. I pressed further, then does the Grand Preceptor believe my father has lived up to the dignity of his official robes? He nodded again. I smiled. Therefore, anyone who seeks to harm my father, or who wishes to strip him of those robes, is undoubtedly a criminal deserving of the realm's wrath. Step by step, I closed in on Bai Rongqing. Your Excellency, do you think such a criminal might appear? He fell silent, a deadly silence. After a long while, he lifted his head to look at me. Zhou Ruogu, do you know something? I blinked, feigning ignorance. What should I know? Bai Rongqing's mouth opened and closed, but he ultimately said nothing more. Instead, he turned away with a complex look in his eyes and left, never again mentioning the matter of seeking out my father. Zhou Ruoku. He suddenly called my name with solemn seriousness. I turned to face him. What might the Grand Sage wish to instruct me? Bai Rongqing's brows furrowed slightly. His gaze drifted uncertainly, his eyes still clouded with conflict. Yet he couldn't hold back any longer. That Xiao Jin, his character and appearance are both commendable. Only his origins are humble. If given a chance, he could rise to greatness. Though marrying him would be considered a step down, you wouldn't suffer hardship. He would surely provide you with a life of luxury and fine living. I never expected that bringing him here to witness this scene, after he'd abandoned any hope of persuading my father, would lead him to play his cards so openly, attempting to sway me directly. It's nothing short of a joke. So, you believe marrying Xiao Jin would grant me a life of luxury? That he could bestow upon me wealth and prestige? That he would make a good husband? I fired off 3 questions in succession. Bai Rongqing remained silent, nodding. I sneered coldly, then stepped closer, closing the distance between us. But I was born a noble lady of the capital, the legitimate third daughter of the esteemed Chancellor's household, renowned alongside Princess Zhaoning as the twin beauties of the capital. My destiny was glory from birth. Why should I waste my life nurturing a man who is nothing? Because he might one day rise to power? Because he might one day bring me wealth and splendor? Because he might grant me a life of silk robes and fine food? I paused slightly, my tone growing deliberately heavy. But Your Excellency, the State Master, have you forgotten? I already possessed all of this. Bai Rongqing paled momentarily, then shook his head. That is not what I meant. I simply believe he would make a good husband. A good husband? You think so? I cut him off abruptly, my voice rising. Grand Master, you are not a woman. You do not know how harsh this world can be to women. Nor do you know that choosing the wrong husband is like leaping into a sea of fire. On what basis do you presume he'd be a good husband? If I end up unhappy, will you take responsibility and care for me for the rest of my life? I must have sounded rather aggressive. Bai Rongqing seemed utterly taken aback by my intensity, merely shaking his head repeatedly, unable to utter a word. After all, he was already feeling guilty. He sought to use my marriage to repay his perceived life-saving favor, presuming his benefactor was a man of impeccable character. Thus, he spouted hollow platitudes, ostensibly for my own good, yet fundamentally driven by his own desire for gratitude. But I am not some disposable favor he can discard at will. Bai Rongqing, can you truly guarantee that if I marry Xiao Jin, our marriage will be harmonious and peaceful for the rest of our lives? He looked downcast. I cannot guarantee that. Bai Rongqing was indeed the closest being to a god. But he was still human. He couldn't guarantee that marrying Xiao Jin would truly bring me a lifetime of smooth sailing. Truth be told, what we're betting on is Xiao Jin's character. But no one truly knows the core of his nature. So no one can offer such a guarantee. That's why Bai Rongqing couldn't be straightforward. He couldn't look me in the eye and say, if I marry Xiao Jin, my life will surely be smooth sailing. He would feel uneasy. Since the Grand Sage hadn't yet made up his mind, he would escort me back to the manor first, leaving the matter to be pondered later. I never expected to change Bai Rongqing's thoughts today. My goal was merely to plant a seed of doubt in his heart. Then, in tandem with my plan, guide him step by step into the abyss. Bai Rongqing didn't refuse, personally escorting me back to the manor. Xiao Jin stood watching at the gate, likely puzzled as to why the two who should have been inside the mansion had suddenly vanished. Seeing me return, a smile immediately spread across his face. Why didn't you tell me you were going out, miss? What if something had happened? His tone was earnest, deliberately laced with feigned intimacy, especially since they stood right at the Zhou residence's main gate, where passers-by could easily overhear their exchange. Some gossip-loving souls promptly pricked up their ears, seeking a shady spot to eavesdrop. I remained silent, merely exchanging a glance with Mingzhu. Mingzhu nodded imperceptibly, then retorted without hesitation, my young mistress goes where she pleases. You're merely a guard, stick to guarding the courtyard gate. How is it that you now meddle in her affairs more than the Chancellor himself? Could it be you've forgotten your place? Deliberately trying to tarnish her reputation at the gate? Xiao Jin's eyes flashed with panic. He hastily waved his hands. I didn't mean it that way. I was just concerned for her. Concerned? Mingzhu sneered coldly. Could it be that you, a mere servant, harbor improper thoughts toward my young mistress? Seeking marriage due to fate was one thing, but if he harbored other intentions toward her, he could keep guarding the courtyard gate, she could truly disregard the debt of saving her life and simply have him swept out. After all, a maiden's reputation is paramount. That's not what I meant. Xiao Jin's hands fell limply to his sides. His fists clenched tightly. His expression one of suppressed anger. In my past life, after he climbed to power by stepping on my father, his arrogance knew no bounds. That boastful, indulgent nature was ingrained in his very bones. Now, despite his self-proclaimed endurance of humiliation, he was being berated by my maidservant. She must have already branded me as utterly vicious in her mind. Why be so harsh? Third miss? He merely offered a greeting. Bai Rongqing cast a faint glance at Xiao Jin, his favor always leaning toward the one who saved his life. Just as I was about to retort, something suddenly occurred to me. My face instantly broke into a smile as I turned to Bai Rongqing, nodding obediently. Since the Grand Sage deems it unobjectionable, Ruoku will certainly not trouble a mere guard. His single word could turn the tide. Yet Xiao Jin could only endure my maid's scolding, pointedly at his nose. The gap between them, the unfulfilled promises, it was enough to create crack after crack between them. Since the young lady has forgiven your rudeness, you'd better hurry back to guard the courtyard gate. If you can't even handle such a minor task, you'd be better off leaving the Chancellor's residence sooner rather than later. Mingzhu added a well-timed remark. Xiao Jin nearly gritted his teeth, but with everyone watching, he could only clasp his hands and nod in compliance. Watching his figure disappear around the corner, I lost all interest in playing along. After a slight bow to Bai Rongqing, I prepared to return home directly. Bai Rongqing likewise turned to leave. Wait. I halted in place, then swiftly turned to stand before Bai Rongqing. Is there anything else? Miss Zhou? Bai Rongqing stood before me, a hint of puzzlement in his eyes. Yet he remained motionless, allowing me to scrutinize him from head to toe. Today he wore a crescent moon-colored robe, accentuating his tall, imposing stature. He was already the most handsome man in the nation. Yet his role as the imperial preceptor had imbued him with a divine aura. Though countless young women secretly harbored feelings for him, none dared to profane the sacred. Otherwise, Why would I need to resort to such roundabout tactics? Attempting to sway his resolve? But something seemed missing. I lowered my gaze. Around his waist, the jade pendant that had never left him in my past life was conspicuously absent. Bai Rongqing, the imperial sage, hailed from a secretive noble lineage, possessing divine powers that allowed him to commune with spirits and divine the stability and fortune of the realm. He was revered as the imperial sage by emperors and worshipped by the people. He always wore a jade pendant at his waist, said to be the source of all his divine abilities. The pendant could bridge the realms of the living and the dead. Rumors even spread that it could communicate with spirits and even bring the dead back to life. In short, he was a legendary figure. In my past life, until the moment I died, Bai Rongqing never once removed the jade pendant from his waist. Why? Not wearing it today? Jade pendant? A flicker of bewilderment crossed Bai Rongqing's eyes, as if he had no recollection of the pendant's existence. He lowered his head, lightly touching his own belt before saying, I have never worn any jade pendant. Could it be that Miss Zhou-san has mistaken something? How could that be? How could I possibly be mistaken? In my previous life, as I lay dying, I clutched that jade pendant tightly, reminding myself never to forget my enemy. My memory could not be wrong. But why? Did Bai Rongqing say he never wore a jade pendant? I forced myself to suppress the growing doubt within me. Perhaps, in this new life, many things had changed. Perhaps I was mistaken. Without flinching, I spoke up, ignoring Bai Rongqing's gaze as I turned and headed straight back to the manor. Xiao Jin had hooked up with the rough-and-tumble maid in my courtyard, fueling. This hadn't happened in my previous life. Right. Many things had changed. Just like that jade pendant that could once connect with spirits and ghosts, it too had vanished. Observing Fueling's lackluster work ethic these past few days, I'd been scheming to slack off, hiding in my room to primp instead. To appear slimmer, I'd deliberately skipped meals for days. A young girl consumed by infatuation is truly terrifying. Mingzhu chattered on, her voice trembling by the end. I could roughly guess what Xiao Jin intended with this move. Bai Rongqing had repeatedly sabotaged his plans, backing out at the last moment twice in a row. Xiao Jin no longer dared to trust him completely, so he decided to take matters into his own hands, seducing Fueling and employing some underhanded tricks. Since that's the case, I might as well give him that chance. Mingzhu, find an excuse tomorrow. Promote Fueling to be my personal maid. Have her assist her with dressing. Want to stir up trouble? Then let's make it a big one. That very evening, I sent an invitation to Princess Xiaoning. Among my closest confidants, Princess Xiaoning held the highest status and possessed the most forthright and fiery temperament. Not only did she detest evil, but she especially loathed men who used sweet talk to deceive others. As the emperor's own aunt, Grand Princess Zhaoran had once resolutely embarked on a political marriage for the sake of the dynasty. Later, when war broke out between the two nations, the Grand Princess endured countless hardships before finally returning to her homeland with her newborn daughter. For the sake of this daughter, the Grand Princess never remarried. Alas! Years ago, when Princess Linen went out to enjoy the spring scenery, she met a penniless scholar. With his sweet talk, he won the princess's favor, which in turn brought him official robes and endless honors. Within a year, that penniless scholar brought his country cousin into the household. Calculating the princess's gentle nature and the fact that the Grand Princess was then at the Southern Summer Palace, the scholar and his cousin deliberately provoked the princess until she suffered a severe hemorrhage. She ultimately died in childbirth. The Grand Princess, bereaved of her daughter in middle age, now had only this precious granddaughter. Thus, upon her birth, Xiaoning was immediately granted the title of princess. The current emperor, pitying the Grand Princess's loneliness, showered Xiaoning with affection. Her treatment differed little from that of other princesses in public, and perhaps even exceeded it. Bathed in imperial favor, Xiaoning grew fearless and bold, developing a fiery temperament and mastering martial arts. She never parted with her long whip. The next day, Xiaoning arrived at my chancellor's residence as promised. As lifelong friends, the two young ladies had endless topics to discuss when together. Yesterday, I had several exquisite silk gowns specially purchased outside the residence, awaiting her arrival to try them on with me. Fuling stood by to attend to us. Xiaoning, the Grand Princess's birthday banquet is approaching soon. I fear making a mistake. Could you help me judge whether this gown is suitable? I pointed to the exquisite attire before us, feeling somewhat conflicted. For the Grand Princess's banquet, the garments and jewelry worn must not only be befitting of one's rank and status but also avoid any taboos held dear by Her Highness. Xiaoning sat on the nearby armchair and smiled. Then go change into it first. I'll take a look. At her words, Fuling immediately stepped forward to help me change. I gently pushed her hand away. Several more sets of clothes should have been delivered today. They should be in the East Wing now. Fuling, fetch those sets for me. No need to attend to my dressing. Fuling nodded and withdrew from the room with proper decorum. The instant she closed the door, I quickly added, remember to lock the door. Mingzhu and the other maids in the courtyard have gone out on my errands. If any blind fool barges in, it would ruin my reputation. Yes, miss. Fuling's eyes flickered before she closed the door. Even if some fool dared to barge in, wouldn't I be here? Xiaoning pointed to the whip at her waist. I chuckled helplessly. But if it were some servant or guard who barged in, my virtue would be lost. Even with this whip, it wouldn't help at all. Xiaoning frowned, her expression serious. Our servants are all trained. If any dared enter a mistress's boudoir without permission, and worse yet, saw what they shouldn't, gouging out their eyes would be the lightest punishment. Losing their lives would be well deserved. Indeed. So I wanted to see. Xiao Jin. Would he pass up such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? I claimed the dress wasn't exquisite enough and didn't change into it, instead selecting jewelry and headpieces with Xiaoning. Less than half a cup of tea later, the door suddenly jolted, followed by Fuling's shriek. In the blink of an eye, the door was kicked open, and Xiao Jin stormed in. Young lady, you haven't. Before he could finish, Xiaoning's whip cracked across his face. Bold and reckless. How dare you barge into a young lady's boudoir without her master's permission? What a fine job you're doing as a guard. The whip left an instant trail of blood across his cheek. Xiao Jin's eyes widened in shock. He clearly hadn't anticipated this outcome. Pushing open the door, he'd expected to witness something scandalous. Even accounting for the worst possible scenario, he should have seen only my partially undressed state. Yet a woman's reputation is paramount. Had he witnessed the scene, the consequences would have been dire. Either he would lose his life, or I would have to throw myself into the lake to preserve my honor. But the prophecy of fate loomed large. Thus, the only solution before us was bound to be brought up again, and this time, I would comply with his wishes. I heard a noise earlier and feared something had happened to third young miss. I couldn't help but rush over to check. Xiao Jin quickly concocted an excuse. But Xiaoning had also spent her childhood in the palace, witnessing countless schemes. She could easily discern truth from falsehood, spotting inconsistencies in such claims. A sound? The servant girl outside stumbled and cried out involuntarily. If you weren't blind, you'd know it was her fault just now. How dare you push open Kair's door? As a guard, you should know that opening a woman's chamber door without summons risks seeing things you shouldn't. If you ruin your young mistress's virtue, do you think you'd still be fit to be her son-in-law? It must be said, Xiaoning had a sharp eye. She saw right through Xiao Jin's petty schemes at a glance. But certain matters were not convenient for me to handle openly. The debt of saving my life weighed heavily. If I treated him too harshly, it would seem I disregarded that life-saving favor. To put it more bluntly, it would paint the legitimate daughter of the esteemed chancellor as heartless, someone who dared to betray even a life-saving debt. Therefore, I couldn't confront him openly. But Zhao, granddaughter of the Grand Princess, a princess of the realm, an adopted daughter cherished by the emperor like a biological princess, possessed the standing to criticize him in any manner, especially under such legitimate pretense. A single accusation of offending a princess would justify dragging him away for dozens of lashes, a perfectly proper punishment. Feeling never expected Zhao to intervene. She stumbled in, immediately fell to her knees, and kowtowed 3 times to Zhao and me. This servant is at fault. I tripped earlier, causing guard Xiao to mistakenly believe something happened to the young lady. He was merely acting out of loyalty. Please, princess, do not hold it against him. Zhao snorted coldly. Right and wrong are clear enough to me. Even if Kair forgives his rashness, he has offended this princess and must be punished. 70 lashes, by the end. Xiao Jin had coughed up blood and collapsed unconscious on the stool. In the end, he was carried away and tossed into a room. After all, he was my savior. His misconduct in offending the princess deserved punishment. But if I stood by and watched him die from his injuries, that would be my failure to repay his kindness, my own misconduct. So I personally brought medicine to his room. Third young miss. Why have you come personally? His face was deathly pale. He tried to rise from the bed but collapsed back down the next moment. He lay sprawled across the mattress, covered by a thin quilt that couldn't mask the overwhelming stench of blood. The scar on his face still oozed blood. The rules are clear, you offended an honored guest. Even as my savior, I cannot intercede for you. I trust you understand. Fulling brought me a chair. I sat beside the bed and took out the bottle of premium topical medicine from my bosom. That said, you are still my savior. I wouldn't stand by and watch you die from your injuries. Here. I paid a hefty sum for this elixir. It guarantees your face won't be scarred, and you'll remain a handsome young man. With that, I opened the medicine bottle. I dabbed some onto my fingertip and personally wiped it onto the wound on his cheek. Xiao Jin hadn't expected me to handle it myself. He froze momentarily, then felt overwhelming joy surge through him. Yet he forced himself to suppress all excitement, tilting his head slightly as he let me apply the ointment. Still, his words betrayed his reluctance. How could I trouble you, miss, with such a minor matter? I had just scooped more ointment from the bottle, ensuring every inch of his facial wound was thoroughly covered. Hearing him speak thus, I decisively handed the porcelain jar to Fulling. Since you find this so improper, let Fulling continue applying the ointment for you. As for the other injuries, I'll have other guards come assist you. With that, I stood up and started walking toward the door. Just as I reached the entrance, Xiao Jin suddenly called out to me, "Third young miss. You personally came to apply the ointment for me today. Could it be? There's something I forgot to tell you. Father intends to betroth me to the Imperial Preceptor. He says my destiny is unique, but the Preceptor's blessings are profound. He will surely ensure my life flows smoothly. You needn't feel any pressure anymore. On the day of my wedding, I'll give you a large sum of money as a final repayment for saving my life that day." I cut Xiao Jin off mid-sentence, speaking for myself while flashing a coyly shy expression. After finishing, I dashed straight out of the room. Xiao Jin was left standing there, his face a mix of shock and fury. Mingzhu stood outside the door, staring at me in bewilderment. "When did the master say he was betrothing you to the Imperial Preceptor? How come I know nothing about such an important matter?" I smiled at her. "Oh, I made it up. The truth didn't matter. What matters is that it makes Xiao Jin feel threatened. Only when he makes the first move and slips up can I seize the opportunity to strike at his weak spot. Then I won't have to worry about so-called kindness or reputation anymore. And I can crush him. The Grand Princess Seiren's 60th birthday celebration. Though Xiao Jin had lain ill for over 20 days, his wounds hadn't fully healed. As my savior, I naturally wouldn't let him attend the banquet while still injured. Mingzhu and Fueling accompanied me to the Grand Princess's residence. Upon entering, I had Fueling take all the outfits I might need for the banquet to the room prepared for me. The moment she left, Mingzhu immediately leaned close to me and said, "The secret guard just reported that Xiao Jin has left the Chancellor's residence. Judging by the direction, he must also be heading to the Grand Princess's residence. Severely wounded. Yet he still made his way here. I wonder what means he used. The banquet hasn't begun yet, so he probably won't make a move now. Have the secret guards keep a close watch on him. If he meets with anyone, report it to me immediately." Mingzhu nodded and turned to find the guards. I was now in the rear garden of the Grand Princess's residence. Having visited Zhao Ning here often, I knew this courtyard intimately. I easily found a secluded yet open-viewed pavilion. Yet the moment I stepped inside, I spotted that familiar white robe. People say the Grand Preceptor dislikes crowds. Even at imperial banquets where His Majesty personally extends an invitation, he declines 9 times out of 10. Yet here you are, attending both banquets at the Grand Princess's residence. Truly remarkable. My opening words were dripping with sarcasm. He couldn't possibly miss it. Bai Rongqing wore a hint of resignation on his face. One hand was tucked behind his back, while the other toyed with a jade pendant. Last time you asked why I didn't wear a jade pendant. I thought about it afterward. Wearing one at the waist would indeed be more fitting. What do you think of this one? He offered the jade pendant to me. I didn't take it, merely examining it through his outstretched hand. Fine jade. But not the piece from my past life, the one said to possess spiritual powers. Still, I felt something was missing. Bai Rongqing continued speaking to himself, while my heart skipped a beat. Yet my expression remained impassive. No jade in this world is flawless. Your Excellency, the Imperial Preceptor, is being rather greedy. Bai Rongqing smiled. Indeed, I was greedy. I didn't respond further, only staring intently at Bai Rongqing, studying him closely, until my gaze made him uneasy. Miss Zhou-san, why are you staring at me like that? Bai Rongqing avoided meeting my eyes. I wondered, why did the Grand Preceptor attend this banquet? I spoke plainly. Then, under his slightly guilty gaze, I slowly added, could it be because of me? He froze, yet offered no rebuttal. Inside, I sneered coldly. Even now, he still couldn't resist scheming against me. How laughable. Not long ago, He Yair, daughter of the Right Vice Minister of the Secretariat, attended a poetry gathering where a drunken rogue made advances toward her. He grabbed her arm and dragged her into a room. Though nothing was done, her clothes were disheveled, and their struggle was witnessed by others. The gossip spread relentlessly, utterly ruining the He family's daughter's reputation. The entire He family now walks with heads bowed in shame. As for He Yair, she took her own life by hanging. Having said this, I turned to look at Bai Rongqing. Women in this world already face such hardship, though the blame clearly lies with that lecher. It was He Yair who ultimately lost her life. Wouldn't you agree that's profoundly unjust? Bai Rongqing seemed puzzled by my sudden topic, but eventually followed my lead. I have heard of this incident. That lecherous scoundrel was the youngest son of the Deputy Secretary of the Secretariat. Their families were fairly well matched. The original plan was to have them marry, using the status of betrothed to sweep the matter under the rug. Who could have imagined the young lady from the He family would be so fiercely principled? What? The Grand Sage finds it regrettable? I offered no pretense of restraint in my mockery, fixing him with an intense stare. Could it be, Your Eminence, that you believe their marriage was the right course? Bai Rongqing nodded. Marriage could have saved her life. Everything in this world is fleeting, but one's own life is the only thing truly real. A husband's character can be cultivated over time. Why sacrifice one's life needlessly? So that's what he's always believed. But Your Excellency seems to miss the point. Sometimes, for a woman, having her virtue destroyed and then being forced to marry the very man who took it is a torment worse than death. She could marry anyone except the man who ruined her. Bai Rongqing froze. Even if the perpetrator were of noble character, would one still choose death to uphold one's virtue? A person of noble character would never commit such a vile act. With that, I turned and left immediately. The banquet had already commenced in the main hall. I had barely sat down when Fuling, who was serving my meal, dropped the teacup she held, spilling tea directly onto my skirt. "Ah, miss. I didn't mean to." I glanced at her, then rose to pay my respects to the Grand Princess before heading to the rear courtyard to change my clothes. To continue wearing such soiled garments would be utterly indecent. Fuling hurried forward to support me. Sister Mingxu is feeling unwell and is resting in the carriage. Though I've made countless mistakes, my lady now needs attendance. Allow me to make amends. Her words were sincere, and I merely gave a cold laugh without rebutting. Before leaving the banquet, I glanced at Bai Rongqing seated among the men. His gaze was fixed on me. I said nothing, simply turning away decisively. Fuling accompanied me to the side room in the rear courtyard. The moment the door opened, I was met by the strong scent of incense. Knowing the young lady loves incense, I lit it early. Fuling spoke with a smile, though she deliberately covered her mouth and nose with her handkerchief as she spoke. Then she stepped forward to arrange the garments I had brought. "Since you've come out, madam, why not rest in your room for a while? I'll come and wake you later." My eyes swept around the room, quickly settling on a small trinket placed on a nearby shelf. It seemed to be made of wood. I picked it up and weighed it in my hand. It felt surprisingly substantial. Fuling was still chattering away. After arranging the garments, she turned to me. "Miss, please change into this first." In a moment, thud. Before she could finish, I swiftly brought the small object down hard on the back of her neck. Fuling's eyes rolled back, and she collapsed onto the floor. Rolling up my sleeves, I dragged her body onto the bed and roughly covered her face with the garments I'd brought. Then, fumbling inside her sleeve, I found the packet of incense that hadn't been fully placed in the censer. I dumped the entire contents into it at once. The scent within the room grew increasingly potent. So potent that even with my sleeve covering my nose and mouth, I still felt an unbearable heat. After finishing all this, I quickly opened the door and ran out. But the moment I closed the door, someone suddenly appeared before me, grabbing my arm and dragging me along at a mad dash. We didn't stop until we reached the peach grove in the rear courtyard of the Grand Princess's residence. "Bai Rongqing, what the hell are you doing?" I shook off his hand and stood panting heavily in place. He said nothing, instead pulling a dagger from his sleeve. Without a word, he slashed his own arm, then snatched the handkerchief from my waist. He soaked it completely in his own blood before thrusting it toward me. What are you doing?" A thick, pungent scent of blood filled my nostrils. I instinctively took 2 steps back, but Bai Rongqing suddenly leaned in, pressing the handkerchief against my lips before squeezing it forcefully. The blood dripped from the cloth into my mouth. The metallic taste spread, making me want to retch. "Swallow it. My blood can cure all poisons." Poison, naturally, includes the poison of love. His actions left me no way to resist. That drop of blood flowed down my throat, and the inexplicable restlessness within me was indeed calmed. Then I shoved him away. So, Your Excellency, the Imperial Preceptor knew all along what would happen to me. Yet you stood by and watched. I sneered coldly, tearing away all pretense under his stunned gaze. In other words, Your Excellency is an accomplice. Correct? I didn't. Bai Rongqing shook his head immediately, trying to explain, I didn't mean to harm you. If you didn't intend to harm me, then why deliberately weave lies? Why claim I faced a calamity in my destiny? Why force me to marry Xiao Jin? I nearly roared these questions out. Truthfully, there was one more I longed to ask. Why must the debt of your life-saving favor be repaid with the blood of so many from my Zhou family? Bai Rongqing, did I desecrate your family graves? Why won't you let me be? Why did you repeatedly aid Xiao Jin, forcing me into marriage with him? Into that abyss? Bai Rongqing kept shaking his head, panic visible in his eyes. I never meant to harm you. Believe me, I truly never intended to hurt you. I read your fate. You were destined for great wealth and honor in this life. It was perfect. No matter whom you married, your path would be smooth. That's why I chose to help. Bai Rongqing hurriedly explained, but mid-sentence, as if suddenly realizing something, he fell silent. After a long pause, he finally tugged at the corners of his mouth, revealing a bitter smile. Zhou Ruoku, you were actually trying to draw me out, weren't you? Does it matter? I looked at him. His arm was still bleeding profusely, but I only glanced at it briefly before averting my gaze. Instead, I stared at him with eyes filled with near hatred. So my destiny is one of great wealth and honor, no hardship whatsoever. Then why did you insist on marrying me to Xiao Jin? Time and again, at the Grand Princess's spring banquet, you casually declared I'd be a short-lived ghost, spreading it throughout the capital and ruining every suitable match for me. You came to my home, too, to persuade my father, right? And even this time, you resorted to such vicious means to destroy me, to destroy our entire Zhou family. I couldn't hold back any longer. I raised my hand and struck him hard across the face, pouring every ounce of strength I possessed into that blow. Bai Rongqing, what right do you have to treat me this way? All the pent-up grievances erupted in that moment. I could no longer contain the emotion surging within me as I confronted the lofty grand sage before me. How many times had I longed to draw the dagger hidden in my sleeve and plunge it deep into his heart? But I couldn't. As the Imperial Preceptor revered even by the Emperor himself, worshipped by all the people, he was the closest thing to a god in this realm. If I stained my hands with his blood, the entire world would condemn our Zhou family. That would be a crime more heinous than rebellion, a sin that would haunt us for all eternity. I'm sorry. Bai Rongqing raised his hand, as if to wipe away my tears, but ultimately lowered it. I simply believed everything was under control, that nothing could go wrong. Nothing. You believed? I watched the maids and servants approaching from afar, then lowered my voice and leaned closer to Bai Rongqing. But why must your life-saving favor be paid for with the lives of so many from my Zhou family? When you lie awake at midnight, doesn't your conscience truly trouble you? After speaking, I swiftly took a step back, creating a comfortable distance. Then Mingzhu, the leader, gave me a knowing wink before exclaiming dramatically, "Who said our young mistress was missing? Here she is." Admiring the peach blossoms with His Excellency the Imperial Preceptor, the little maid in the emerald dress behind her tilted her head, puzzled. If third young Miss Zhou is here, then who is in the side room? Who could it be? The back courtyard erupted into chaos. Bai Rongqing and I exchanged a glance before following Mingzhu to the side room. Upon arrival, we found a dense crowd gathered at my room's doorway, chattering incessantly. Xiao Jin, his clothes open to reveal only his undergarments, stood brazenly at the doorway. He seemed to be explaining something fervently. Yet his words only made matters worse. And peering from afar, behind the screen of the side room, there was indeed a graceful figure. This whole thing was truly an accident. I don't know what came over me. Third young miss got drunk and wouldn't let go of my hand. I really had no choice. Whatever mistakes were made, they were all my fault. Please, ladies, don't spread this around. Otherwise, my young mistress's reputation. What exactly happens to my reputation? I suddenly spoke up, cutting Xiao Jin off mid-sentence. Everyone assumed the person in the room was me. So when my voice came from behind them, all the noble daughters present today turned to look at me. Third young miss. What are you doing there? Xiao Jin's expression froze. Utterly stunned that I, whom he'd planned to destroy completely, stood before him unscathed. I offered no reply, merely smiling at the grand sage beside me. Some things need no words. When division is needed, division must be sown. If it wasn't Zhou Ruoku in that room, then who was the girl inside? Someone in the crowd suddenly asked. The matron attending the grand princess, now without restraint, walked straight in with two young maidservants. After a long while, the matron emerged before everyone, leading a hastily dressed feeling. Isn't that Zhou Ruoku's maid? Someone spoke up. Xiao Jin whipped his head around, his eyes filled with disbelief. After all, with double the usual dose of perfume added, just a whiff of that scent would cause dizziness and disorientation, driving one mad with primal instinct. Perhaps they wouldn't even recognize the face beneath them. I pushed through the crowd, pulled out another bloodstain-free handkerchief to cover my nose and mouth, then smiled at the pair. I'd heard rumors from the other maids in the courtyard about your affection for each other. It seems those whispers were true. With the Grand Princess and Lady Zhaoning both present today, I shall take it upon myself to approve your marriage. What do you say? Although Feeling still didn't understand what was happening, the prospect of marrying the man she loved flushed her cheeks. She was just about to nod her consent when Xiao Jin suddenly refused. No, I refuse to marry her. With a sharp crack, Zhaoning lashed her whip against her waist and glared at him indignantly. You ruined this girl's reputation. You deserve to pay with your life. Now that she's willing to marry you, you're being picky? Or is it that your ambitions are sky high, and you only want to marry into a wealthy family? At these words, the young ladies present all took several steps back, terrified of being entangled by such a man. Xiao Jin's face darkened to the extreme, but with all eyes upon him, if he continued to refuse, his life might truly end here today. In that case, I shall thank Princess Zhaoning and the third young miss. I personally selected the wedding date for Xiao Jin and Feeling. It shall be 7 days hence. A favorable day, suitable for funerals. As he is, after all, my savior, the Chancellor's household shall naturally fund a grand wedding ceremony for them. Before the wedding, Zhaoning specifically stationed her personal guards to watch over Xiao Jin, fearing he might suddenly flee. Naturally, under such watchful eyes, he had no way to meet with others. And so the day of the grand wedding arrived. I had deliberately withdrawn most of the guards stationed at the entrance. Then, last night, relying on the letters I had felt through all night long in my memory, I finally selected the one that pleased me most. The moment I tucked the envelope into my sleeve, the door slammed open. Xiao Jin, clad in crimson, no longer bore his former dignified and refined countenance. His eyes held nothing but naked calculation. A long sword in hand, he strode directly to my side. I've tried countless ways to make you see me. But why? My third young miss. Can't you ever spare a glance my way? I'm the only man who can help you weather your calamity. How could you bear to watch me marry another woman? He was mad, utterly mad, to utter such words. You think you're worthy to help me through my trials? My undisguised contempt incensed Xiao Jin. He roared. And as expected, guards patrolling outside the courtyard rushed in. Xiao Jin gritted his teeth, pressing the sword against my throat. Amidst the cries of alarm, he dragged me out of the city, racing northward until we reached a cliff's edge. Zhou Ruoku, you still have a chance to change your mind. If we marry today, I swear I will cherish you above all else. What say you? I watched the guards from the Chancellor's mansion rush to my rescue. Father, supported by the steward, gazed at me with eyes brimming with tears, terrified that Xiao Jin, in his fury, might slit my throat with the sword pressed against my neck. Bai Rongqing, who had received word and arrived swiftly, now fixed a piercing stare on Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin, there are countless ways to repay the debt of saving my life. If you seek to rise above your station, I have other means to aid you. Why this stubbornness? Shut your mouth. Xiao Jin roared madly, his eyes now fixed on Bai Rongqing as well. And you have the nerve to say that? You promised to help me deceive Zhou Ruoku. Yet you're the one who's head over heels for her. Time and again you've shown weakness, even cutting yourself to save her from poison. Didn't you say you'd repay my life-saving favor? Is this your so-called repayment? Bai Rongqing, is this how you treat your benefactor? His rage grew more frenzied. Finally, the long sword in his hand trembled violently, nearly slicing through my throat. Father was so terrified his legs went limp. Yet all he could do was cry out my name over and over, his eyes red with grief. What does the Chancellor truly desire? The Zhou family's century-old reputation, or the life of his own daughter? He was forcing my father to compromise. Release Kair, and everything can be negotiated. Xiao Jin, you have such a promising future, you shouldn't be doing this. Father's voice trembled as he tried to persuade him to reconsider. A joke! Xiao Jin's eyes were cold as ice. When Bai Rongqing ordered you to marry Zhou Ruoquan to me, why didn't you think then that I had a bright future and was someone worthy of trust? You clearly looked down on me, thinking my family was ruined. So what if I looked down on you? I suddenly spoke, my tone dripping with scorn. I am the legitimate daughter of the Chancellor, the paragon of all women in the capital. You, a worthless commoner, stuck guarding city gates, never once thinking of how to achieve greatness. All day long, you only think about climbing onto the coattails of noble ladies to rise to power. A man like that, what right do you have to expect others to respect you? Shut up! Xiao Jin, struck at his core, flew into a rage and raised the long sword in his hand. Kair! Zhou Ruok! Two voices filled with concern for me rang out simultaneously. But the sword never fell. Instead, his entire body collapsed to the ground. He coughed up mouthfuls of blood, his hand losing all strength. Without another word, I drew a dagger from my sleeve and plunged it deep into Xiao Jin's heart, twisting it with force. Ever wonder why I let you marry Fueling today? In his nearly shattered gaze, I slowly revealed the truth. The medicine I used to treat your facial wounds was laced with poison. It takes a month to take effect. Truthfully, whether or not you made that desperate move today, threatening me in front of everyone, you were going to die. Ultimately, what I wanted from the start was Xiao Jin's life. The only difference was whether it was done legitimately. Now, it was panic-driven self-preservation on my part, while Xiao Jin deserved his fate. No, it wasn't like that. Xiao Jin coughed up a mouthful of blood, his eyes losing focus as he murmured, I should have married you. Then risen to power. Trampled the Zhou family to climb the ranks, eventually becoming the most powerful man in the court, filling my harem. I twisted the dagger with all my strength, shattering his heart. He wailed in agony. You deserve it? Xiao Jin, a man like you deserves nothing but hell. Xiao Jin is dead. I killed him with my own hands. Bai Rongqing's expression was complex as he lowered his gaze to the blood on my hands. Lost in thought, I stared at him coldly, clenching the blood-stained envelope in my hand. Then, before all present, I declared, I just retrieved this letter from Xiao Jin's waist. It's addressed to His Excellency the State Master. To the Grand Sage? What's going on? Could this thief actually know the Grand Sage? It seems likely. Otherwise, how could the Grand Sage have called out this thief's name directly when divining Miss Zhou San's fortune at the Grand Princess's spring banquet? But how could it be? How could the Grand Sage possibly have any connection to a common thief? The crowd murmured in disbelief. None could fathom that the unblemished Grand Preceptor, Bai Rongqing, could be connected to such a brazen thief. Before everyone, I personally opened the letter, reading each word carefully. Finally, I handed the envelope to the Jingzhou prefecture commander who had led the troops to rescue me. The letter stated that Xiao Jin had once done the Grand Preceptor a favor. To repay this debt, he had persuaded the Grand Preceptor to deliberately distort my fate before everyone, forcing me into marriage with Xiao Jin. Then, at the Grand Princess's birthday banquet, the attack had originally targeted me, but things had gone awry. Suddenly, I changed the subject, my eyes brimming with tears. Your Holiness, I have never wronged you in any way. Why must you, out of gratitude for your own kindness, condemn me to death? These words sent shockwaves through the crowd. Even my father's expression changed instantly, his gaze toward Bai Rongqing now filled with deep suspicion. And this letter? I personally retrieved it from his person, in full view of everyone. Even if they took it back to compare the handwriting, they absolutely could not find any flaw. Yet even so, some still tried to exonerate him. The Imperial Preceptor. Surely he wouldn't do such a thing? Would he not? I stepped forward before the crowd, advancing step by step to stand before Bai Rongqing. Tilting my head slightly, I fixed him with an unyielding stare and demanded, Bai Rongqing, of all the deeds described in this letter, is there even one that falsely accuses you? Is there? Bai Rongqing closed his eyes, his expression darkening. None. Those two words were enough to bring him crashing down from his pedestal. The world is a strange place. A deity revered atop a divine altar need only commit a single misstep to be condemned by all, their past merits swiftly forgotten. Just like Bai Rongqing now, for his own selfish gain, he deliberately ruined my reputation, nearly toppling the entire Zhou family. Such actions, how are they any different from those of a petty villain? I couldn't simply kill Bai Rongqing outright. So from the very beginning, my scheme was to make him step down from his pedestal, one step at a time, from being the favored son of heaven, high above all, to facing the scorn of the masses. That is the fate he deserves. But Fu Ling, that madwoman whose heart and eyes were consumed by Xiao Jin, witnessed me kill him with my own hands. Yet she slipped away from the crowd, dagger raised, intent on avenging her beloved by taking my life. As I turned, I saw her charging toward me, dagger in hand. Before I could react, Bai Rongqing shoved me aside. Yet he himself remained motionless, allowing the dagger to pierce his chest. This is what I owe you. He turned and spoke only those words. Do you think this will make me forgive your past deeds? I sneered. No. I only regret not killing you with my own hands. The following spring, on Mother's Memorial Day, I took Mingzhu to the temple to pray for Mother's soul and offer incense. Suddenly, I saw the jade pendant that should have belonged to Bai Rongqing, now reverently enshrined within the temple. The abbot told me, this jade pendant possesses spiritual power. It was once given by someone destined to be with its owner, who sacrificed all their own fortune just to ensure the beloved would be reborn in the next life. A worshipper nearby, hearing this, couldn't help but wipe away tears. To exhaust one's entire life's fortune just to ensure the beloved's rebirth in the next life, truly a fool for love. I scoffed. Perhaps. Having committed every conceivable evil, his conscience finally gnawed at him, driving him to sacrifice everything for a single rebirth? After all, in the dead of night, if vengeful spirits truly existed, I would surely haunt Xiaojin and Bai Rongqing night after night. How could the self-proclaimed righteous and virtuous imperial preceptor not feel a shred of guilt? All is but the law of karma. What seeds are sown in a past life bear fruit in this one. If blame must be placed, blame him for that single moment of misjudgment that cost so many lives. This outcome is but retribution. I turned and left without hesitation. All is as heaven wills. The end.